When I picked up the phone that morning, I had no idea my whole world was about to fall apart. "Hey, sweetie," I said, smiling as I dialed my son's number. "So, have you two picked a wedding date yet?" Before Ethan could even answer, I heard a voice in the background, his fiancée Kendra. And then with that soft, cold tone that could slice through glass, she said, "Oh, we already got married yesterday. We only invited special people." For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. But then Ethan stayed silent and my heart just stopped. Special people. I stood there in my own living room, clutching the phone like it weighed 100 pounds. The same living room I'd helped them furnish: couch, TV stand, dining table, all bought with my money. For 3 years I'd paid their rent. I'd stocked their fridge when they couldn't afford groceries. I'd helped Kendra pick out her wedding dress, the one I unknowingly paid for with the emergency money she'd asked me for last month. And now apparently I wasn't special enough to even be there. The pale blue dress I'd bought for their wedding was still hanging in my closet, tags untouched. The matching shoes still in the box. I had pictured myself standing proudly next to my son, watching him start a new chapter. Instead, I was erased from it completely. When I finally found my voice, I asked softly, "Why, Ethan? Why didn't you tell me?" He hesitated before muttering, "Mom, it was just really small. Just us and a couple witnesses." But I already knew it wasn't true. The photos had started showing up on Facebook that morning. I saw Kendra's parents smiling next to the bride and groom, her siblings holding champagne glasses, her best friends tagging her in captions like, "What a perfect day." And me? I was just a ghost scrolling through their celebration, tears blurring my screen. A week later, Kendra called again. Her voice completely different this time. Gone was the smug tone. Now she sounded desperate. "Mrs. Collins," she said, her voice shaking, "the rent's due. The landlord's threatening to evict us. I think you forgot to send the transfer." I didn't say a word for a good 10 seconds. For years, I'd been the one running to the bank at the last minute, eating canned soup so they could eat steak, skipping doctor visits to pay their bills. And now, after cutting me out of their wedding, they had the nerve to call as if nothing had happened. I took a deep breath and said calmly, "Kendra, didn't I tell you once? I only help special people." The silence on the other end was heavy. I could almost hear her swallow hard. "Mrs. Collins, I don't understand," she whispered. "We've always been special to you. You're like a second mom to me." Her fake sweetness didn't fool me anymore. That tone, the one she used whenever she wanted money, I finally heard it for what it was. Manipulation wrapped in politeness. That night I sat on my bed and cried. But not the way I used to. These weren't weak, lonely tears. They were tears of anger, years of frustration boiling over. All those times I'd hoped for affection, all the sacrifices I'd made, thinking I'd be loved in return. It hit me, I hadn't been a mother to them. I'd been an ATM with emotions. And that realization, it changed everything. When I woke up the next morning, something inside me felt different. I wasn't broken anymore. I was done. I poured myself a cup of coffee, sat down at my kitchen table, and whispered, "No more. No more funding their lifestyle. No more begging for respect. No more pretending that love and money were the same thing." Because that day I decided to stop being their fool. And that decision would change everything. But what happens when the people who once depended on you realize their bank just shut down? You'll see how far they go to get it reopened. That morning, after hanging up on Kendra, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: control. For so long, my life had revolved around Ethan and his needs. If he called, I answered. If he asked, I gave. If he cried, I fixed it. But this time, I didn't. I walked over to my kitchen counter, grabbed a notebook, and started doing some math. Rent, $700 a month for 3 years. That's over $25,000. Groceries, gas, emergencies. Another $10,000 at least. Birthday and Christmas gifts? Don't even get me started. In total, I'd spent more than $40,000 trying to buy love that was never really mine. And what did I get in return? A social media post that said, "Family means everything," with me cropped out of the picture. The phone rang again. Ethan's name flashed on the screen. For a second, the old reflex kicked in. The mom reflex. But then I took a sip of my coffee, smiled to myself, and let it ring. 10 minutes later, a text came through. "Mom, please answer. We need to talk." Delete. Felt good. It felt like breathing for the first time after years of suffocating under other people's expectations. That afternoon, I put on my shoes and went for a walk. No errands. No purpose. Just me and the fall air. I walked past the park where Ethan used to play as a boy, where he'd run to me with scraped knees and say, "You're the best mom ever." That little boy was gone. Somewhere along the way, he'd traded gratitude for entitlement. I stopped by the bank. The manager, Mr. Hall, had known me for years. He waved when I walked in. "Mrs. Collins." "Same transfer as always." "Not this time, Mr. Hall," I said. "I need to cancel all automatic payments to Ethan and Kendra." He looked up surprised. "Everything okay?" "Everything's finally okay," I replied. He smiled gently, maybe realizing what this meant. He processed the cancellations while I sat there, hearing the faint clicks of his keyboard, each one like a lock snapping shut on years of emotional blackmail. When he handed me the confirmation papers, he said, "I hope no one's forcing you into this, Mrs. Collins." I laughed softly. "No, Mr. Hall. For the first time, I'm forcing myself to take care of me." I walked out of that bank lighter than I'd felt in a decade. My money was mine again. My choices were mine again. But peace doesn't last long when people are addicted to your generosity. When I got home, I saw Ethan's car parked in my driveway. Kendra's too. My stomach tightened. They had keys. I'd given them copies just in case. When I opened the door, they were already inside, sitting on my couch like they owned the place. Ethan's head was buried in his hands. Kendra was pacing the living room like a storm about to hit. And there was a man I didn't recognize, mid-50s, wearing a gray suit and holding a folder. "Mom," Ethan started, his tone rehearsed. "We were worried about you." "Really?" I said, crossing my arms. "Worried enough to break into my house?" Kendra stepped forward. "Mrs. Collins, this is Mr. Thompson. He's from a law firm. We think you need help managing things. You've been acting strange." My heart went cold. "Managing what exactly?" I asked. Mr. Thompson smiled, that kind of polite smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Your finances. Your well-being. Your children are concerned that you might be under stress or showing signs of confusion. They've asked us to discuss power of attorney." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was insane. "You're trying to declare me incompetent?" "Mom," Ethan said, lowering his voice, "we're not saying that. We just think you're making rash decisions. You're cutting us off, isolating yourself." I cut him off. "Rash decisions? You mean finally learning boundaries?" Kendra's fake composure cracked. "We're your family, for God's sake. Everything you have will belong to us one day anyway. We're just trying to protect what's ours." There it was, the truth. Not love. Not concern. Just greed dressed in concern. I pointed toward the door. "Get out. All of you." Ethan tried one last time. "Mom, please. Don't make this harder." I looked him straight in the eyes. "Oh, honey, it's already been hard. You just never noticed." They left, but the threat they carried stayed behind. What I didn't know was this wasn't over. The next time they showed up, they wouldn't come alone, and what they brought could destroy my life. The next morning I barely slept. The words from yesterday echoed in my mind like a haunting song. We're just protecting what's ours. It was almost funny. They'd lived off me for 3 years, and suddenly my money was theirs. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. Same tired eyes, same wrinkles, but something had changed. There was a fire in my gaze, the kind that only comes after you've been burned too many times. I brewed my coffee, sat down at the kitchen table, and decided something simple. If they want war, they'll get one. But it's going to be on my terms. By noon, my phone was lighting up like a Christmas tree. Ethan called 5 times. Kendra called 7. I didn't answer a single one. Around 2 p.m., there was a loud knock at the door. I looked through the peephole and froze. Ethan. Kendra. And that same lawyer, Mr. Thompson. I opened the door just enough to speak. What do you want? Kendra plastered on her fake sweet smile. We just want to talk, Mrs. Collins. It's about your situation. My situation? I said sharply. I'm doing just fine, thanks. Ethan stepped forward, his voice calm but rehearsed. Mom, you're not thinking clearly. You cut us off financially, you won't answer our calls, and now you're locking us out of your life. We're worried about your mental state. I almost laughed. My mental state? Because I stopped paying your bills. Mom, please, Ethan said. We spoke with Mr. Thompson. He said there are legal ways to help you manage things if I'm what? Old? Confused? Crazy. That last word hit like thunder in the room. The silence that followed was thick. Kendra looked down, pretending to be hurt. We're just trying to help you before things get worse. You're 71, Mrs. Collins. It's normal to need guidance. Guidance. I took a step closer. I've managed my finances for 40 years, paid off 2 mortgages, raised a son on my own, retired debt-free, and now you 2 freeloaders think I need guidance. Mr. Thompson tried to calm things down. Mrs. Collins, your son and daughter-in-law only want what's best for you. They believe. I cut him off cold. Mr. Thompson, the only thing they believe in is my bank account. He sighed, closing his folder. Then you leave us no choice. If this continues, we may have to take legal action. Ethan frowned. Mom, don't make us do that. I looked at him, my baby boy who once held my hand when crossing the street. Now he was threatening me with a lawyer. Do it, I said. Because the woman you could manipulate doesn't live here anymore. I opened the door wider, pointing to the porch. Get out. They stood there, speechless. Kendra's eyes turned cold. You'll regret this, she hissed. Maybe, I said. But at least I'll regret it with my own money. When the door closed behind them, I felt the silence wrap around me like armor. For the first time, it didn't feel empty, it felt safe. But peace is fragile. That evening, I went to the hardware store and changed all the locks on my house. The owner, Mr. Benson, raised an eyebrow when I asked for the best ones they had. Trouble at home? He asked kindly. Not anymore, I said. That's exactly what I'm fixing. His son installed the new locks the same day. I stood by the doorway watching, my chest heavy with a mix of relief and sadness. Because as much as I wanted to move on, I knew Ethan and Kendra weren't the type to walk away quietly. I was right. 2 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got me. Mrs. Collins, the voice said smoothly. This is Detective James from the County Sheriff's Office. We've received a wellness report about you. My stomach dropped. What? Someone reported that you might be in distress or exhibiting signs of confusion. We just need to verify that you're safe. Confusion. There it was again. Their new weapon. I felt my hands tremble, not from fear but from fury. They hadn't just insulted me now. They were trying to erase me. If you think that was bad, wait till you hear what they did next, when they tried to declare me mentally unstable. When the detective showed up at my door, I already knew who was behind it. Ethan and Kendra were escalating. They'd gone from guilt trips to threats and now to lies. I opened the door slowly. A tall man in a brown uniform stood there, holding a clipboard. Mrs. Collins? Yes. I'm Detective James. We received a report that you might be in distress. We're just here to make sure everything's okay. I forced a polite smile. Everything's fine, Detective. Someone must have misunderstood something. He glanced inside my home. The place was spotless. The smell of fresh coffee lingered in the air, and the afternoon sun poured across the living room floor. I looked as far from mentally unstable as anyone could. Still, he asked a few questions about my medication, my finances, whether I lived alone. His tone was professional, but I could tell he already knew this was nonsense. Honestly, ma'am, he said quietly as he finished his notes, we get calls like this a lot, usually from family members who don't like being told no. I smiled, a small, tired smile. You're right, Detective. My son's allergic to the word no. He chuckled softly, then tipped his hat. You have a good day, Mrs. Collins. After he left, I closed the door, leaned against it, and let out a shaky breath. It was official. My own son had tried to weaponize the system against me. That night, I called an attorney I knew from years back, Mr. Weber. He'd helped me with my husband's will after he passed. If anyone could protect me now, it was him. When I explained what had happened, his voice grew serious. Mrs. Collins, what your son and daughter-in-law are doing is elder financial abuse, and now potentially defamation and harassment. This isn't just manipulation anymore. It's a crime. Hearing the word crime made my stomach twist. Can they really have me declared unfit? I asked. Only if they can prove it in court, he said. But don't worry, we'll make sure they can't. The next morning, I met Mr. Weber at his office downtown. He was a calm man, gray-haired, the kind of person who made you feel safe just by talking to him. He pulled out a yellow legal pad. We'll start documenting everything, every transfer, every favor, every dollar you gave them. Dates, amounts, screenshots. If they try to claim you're incompetent, we'll prove you've managed your finances just fine. For hours, we went through my records. It was painful, like reliving every manipulation, every emergency, every guilt trip. When we totaled it up, Mr. Weber whistled softly. Over $40,000, Mrs. Collins. That's not support, that's exploitation. He looked at me firmly. We'll protect you, but you need to be ready. People like this, they don't stop easily. He was right. 2 days later, as if on cue, I saw Ethan's car parked across the street. Not once but several times that week. He'd just sit there, engine running, pretending to check his phone, watching me. Kendra wasn't much better. She started sending texts from unknown numbers. Mom, please. Let's talk. Don't do this to us. You're overreacting. I didn't reply to a single one. Silence, I realized, was the most powerful answer of all. Then one Friday morning, a knock at the door came again. But this time it wasn't the police. It was a young woman in a gray suit, holding a government badge. Good morning, Mrs. Collins, she said softly. I'm Mrs. Schmidt, a social worker from the Department of Senior Services. We received a report that you may be experiencing mental distress. I'm here to conduct a wellness check. I froze for a moment, then slowly stepped aside. Of course. They'd called in the government this time. She took a seat on my couch and began reading from her clipboard. The report states that you've made erratic financial decisions, cut off family communication, and installed unnecessary surveillance equipment due to paranoia. Every word dripped with Kendra's phrasing. I could almost hear her voice behind them. Mrs. Schmidt, I said, forcing calm. Before I answer anything, I'd like to call my attorney. She hesitated. Ma'am, that's not really necessary. It is, I interrupted. I'm not saying another word without legal counsel present. Within 20 minutes, Mr. Weber was there. He flashed his card, sat down next to me, and said politely, Miss Schmidt, unless you have a court order, this conversation is over. The poor woman looked embarrassed. I'm just following protocol. Mr. Weber opened a folder. Here's my client's bank records, tax filings, and medical certificates. She's mentally sound, financially independent, and under legal protection. If someone's wasting state resources filing false reports, maybe you should look into that. Mrs. Schmidt reviewed the documents quietly. Her expression shifted from suspicion to guilt. Mrs. Collins, I'm so sorry. I can see now what's happening here. You're not the problem. You're the target. She closed her folder and stood up. You won't be hearing from us again. As soon as the door closed, I turned to Mr. Weber. So what happens now? He looked me in the eyes. Now, Mrs. Collins, they're desperate. Which means the real fight is about to begin. And he was right, because the next thing they did wasn't just cruel, it was illegal. Mr. Weber was right. Ethan and Kendra weren't done. They were cornered now, and people like that lash out when the money runs dry. For a couple of weeks things were quiet. Too quiet. I stopped checking my phone. The unknown numbers disappeared. Even the car that used to sit outside my house stopped showing up. I almost let myself believe it was over. But peace never lasts when greed's involved. One Thursday morning, while I was watering my plants, Mr. Weber's name popped up on my phone. His tone was calm but serious. Mrs. Collins, he said, you'd better sit down. Ethan and Kendra have filed a formal petition in family court. They're trying to have you declared mentally incompetent. My hand went numb around the phone. What? They're asking the court to assign your son as your legal guardian. If they win, he'll have control over all your assets, your accounts, even your home. For a moment I couldn't breathe. My own son is trying to take my life away, I whispered. I know, Mr. Weber said gently, but we'll fight this. I need you to stay calm and trust me. When I hung up, I felt my knees buckle. I sat on the couch, staring into space, trying to make sense of it. My own flesh and blood, the boy I'd raised, fed, protected, was trying to erase me for money. But after the shock came clarity. If they wanted a war, I'd fight it with everything I had left. The next day, Mr. Weber came over with the court documents. I read every line. Lies. All of it. They claimed I'd stopped paying bills, refused medication, acted erratically, even hoarded cash. They had 3 so-called witnesses. Kendra, a bitter neighbor across the street, and my pharmacist, someone I'd always trusted. They fabricated this whole thing, I said, my voice trembling with anger. We'll disprove it, Mr. Weber assured me. But I want you to see something. Look at how detailed these lies are. They've been planning this. He was right again. The manipulation was textbook. Turn independence into confusion, privacy into paranoia, and boundaries into instability. I refused to let them get away with it. That afternoon, I drove straight to my pharmacy. When I walked in, the pharmacist, Mr. Green, looked startled. Mrs. Collins, I didn't expect to see you. I heard you signed a statement about my medication, I said, keeping my voice calm. Is that true? He stammered. Your daughter-in-law came by a few weeks ago. She said she was worried about your health. She asked if I could confirm what prescriptions you filled. I just signed what she gave me. I didn't realize it was for a lawsuit. My heart sank. Even decent people had been pulled into their web. Mr. Green, I'm going to need you to write a new statement, clarifying that I don't take any psychiatric medication and that I'm perfectly healthy. He nodded, guilty. Of course, ma'am. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Next, I went to see the neighbor they listed as a witness, Mr. Davis, a grumpy man who never liked me because my friends sometimes parked near his driveway. He opened the door scowling. What do you want? I want to know why you told the court I've been acting strange. He crossed his arms. Because you have. You put up cameras, yelled at your family in the street, and have people over all the time. I laughed bitterly. Those cameras are there because my family broke into my house, Mr. Davis. And those people, they're my friends. You might try having some. It does wonders for your sanity. He slammed the door in my face, but I didn't care. I had what I needed, proof that his statement was based on gossip, not truth. That evening, Mr. Weber came by again. We'll file counteraffidavits, he said. And I'm scheduling a psychiatric evaluation with Dr. Moore, one of the best in the state. We'll get an official report proving your mental competence. I sighed in relief. Thank you, Mr. Weber. I can't believe this is happening. He gave me a reassuring smile. It's happening because you finally said no. People like Ethan and Kendra can't handle losing control. But we'll beat them with evidence, not emotion. 2 days later, I sat in Dr. Moore's office. A kind woman with silver hair and warm eyes. She asked me questions for nearly 2 hours. About my memory, finances, daily routines, even logical puzzles. When she finished, she smiled. Mrs. Collins, you scored far above average. You're sharper than most people half your age. I'll have the report ready by tomorrow. For the first time in weeks, I felt hope. But that night, as I was about to go to bed, I looked out my window, and there it was again. Ethan's car. Parked across the street. Lights off. Engine running. He wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The court date was coming. And what Ethan did next would shatter the last piece of love I still had for him. The day after Dr. Moore's evaluation, I received her report in a neat white envelope. Inside were 3 pages, each line filled with relief. It said I was mentally fit, emotionally stable, and fully capable of handling my personal and financial affairs. Those words felt like armor. Mr. Weber smiled as he read it. This is bulletproof, Mrs. Collins. They can't twist this. The court date's next week. We'll bring this, the bank records, and a lifetime of proof that you've been nothing but competent. I nodded, clutching the report like it was my last lifeline. But deep down, I knew Ethan and Kendra wouldn't play fair. That night, I sat in bed staring at old photo albums. Ethan's first steps, his high school graduation, the day he got his first job. Every picture showed a smile that used to light up my world. Somewhere between those memories and today's mess, I lost the boy I raised. The next few days were a blur of phone calls, documents, and sleepless nights. Mr. Weber helped me prepare everything: receipts, bank statements, letters, even the canceled automatic transfers that proved I'd supported Ethan for years. But as the hearing drew closer, I felt something shift inside me. Fear slowly turned into resolve. I wasn't the helpless old woman they thought I was. I was a mother who had finally learned to stop being used. On the morning of the hearing, I put on my best navy blue blazer, the one I used to wear to job interviews decades ago. I looked in the mirror, smoothed my hair, and whispered, "You've survived worse, Margaret." Yes, I'd renamed myself in my head. Margaret Collins. Not Mom. Not Mrs. Collins. Just Margaret. Because that day I wasn't there as a mother begging for love. I was there as a woman fighting for her dignity. When we arrived at the courthouse, the marble floors echoed beneath my heels. The air smelled like paper and tension. Ethan and Kendra were already there, sitting on the opposite bench. They looked polished, fake smiles, expensive clothes, pretending to be the concerned children. Ethan avoided my eyes. Kendra didn't. Her stare was cold, calculating, the same look she probably gave when she planned this entire circus. Mr. Weber leaned toward me and whispered, "Don't react. Let the evidence speak." The bailiff called our case. We stepped inside the courtroom. The judge, a stern woman with silver glasses, looked up from her file. Case number 47B, petition to declare Margaret Collins mentally incompetent, filed by her son Ethan Collins. Hearing my own son's name attached to that sentence sent a shiver through me. Ethan's lawyer, the same smug Mr. Thompson, started first. "Your Honor, our clients are deeply concerned about Mrs. Collins' declining mental health. They've observed irrational behavior, financial instability, and paranoia regarding her family's intentions." He gestured dramatically, as if reading from a movie script. "She's isolated herself, changed her locks, and refuses contact with her son and daughter-in-law. We believe she's no longer capable of sound decision-making." I wanted to scream, but Mr. Weber placed a gentle hand on my wrist, a silent reminder, let them dig their own hole. Then it was our turn. Mr. Weber stood tall, his voice calm but sharp. "Your Honor, the so-called isolation they describe is actually self-protection. The financial instability is a complete lie. Here are her bank statements, tax returns, and a certified report from her financial advisor confirming her assets are intact and well managed." He handed over a thick binder. "And finally, Your Honor, a psychiatric evaluation from Dr. Moore, a licensed professional, concluding that Mrs. Collins is of sound mind, emotionally stable, and entirely capable of managing her affairs." He paused, then looked directly at Ethan. "What we're witnessing here isn't concern. It's control." The judge flipped through the papers silently. Every second felt like an eternity. Finally, she looked up and asked, "Mr. Collins, do you have any medical evidence that your mother is unfit?" Ethan stuttered. Well, no, but..." "Then this case is already hanging by a thread," the judge said curtly. Kendra's face flushed red. She leaned toward Ethan and hissed something under her breath. Something I couldn't hear, but I saw the venom in her eyes. Mr. Weber whispered to me, "She's cracking." And then it happened. Kendra lost control. She stood up and shouted, "She's lying. She's been manipulating us for years. She just wants to keep all the money for herself." The judge's gavel slammed down. "Sit down, Mrs. Collins. This is not your turn to speak." But Kendra didn't stop. "She doesn't care about her son. She treats him like trash. We deserve. I repeated, my voice steady but cold. "You deserve nothing." The entire courtroom went silent. The judge hadn't made her decision yet. But what Kendra did next inside that courtroom would destroy their case forever. The silence in that courtroom was deafening. Everyone froze. Even the judge paused mid-motion, her gavel still raised. Kendra stood there, chest heaving, her carefully crafted mask of innocence gone. "You deserve nothing," I had said, and those words hit her like a slap. Her voice shook as she pointed at me. "You think you're better than us? You've always looked down on us. We've struggled while you sit on your savings doing nothing. You owe us." The judge slammed the gavel again. Crack. "Mrs. Collins," she said sharply, "another outburst and I'll hold you in contempt." But Kendra couldn't stop herself. Years of hidden greed and frustration spilled out like poison. She's selfish. She refused to help us after everything we did for her. We took care of her. I finally spoke, my voice calm and cold. You took care of my wallet, not me. Ethan's face turned pale. Kendra, stop, he whispered. But she was far past reason. No, Ethan. She needs to hear it. She has money she doesn't even use. She should have given us that house years ago. That last sentence hung in the air, and in that single moment she destroyed everything. Mr. Weber leaned over to me, whispering, "That's it. Their case is done." The judge's eyes narrowed. "Mrs. Collins," she said to Kendra, "are you suggesting this case was motivated by financial interest?" Kendra froze, realizing what she just confessed. I didn't mean." The judge raised a hand. "Enough. Sit down." Kendra sank into her chair, eyes wide, trembling. Ethan buried his face in his hands. Mr. Weber stood again, calm and composed. "Your Honor, I think that last statement speaks for itself. My client isn't unstable. She's being targeted. This petition was never about her well-being. It was about control, greed, and money." He walked toward the bench and placed one final piece of paper before the judge. "This is Dr. Moore's certified statement confirming Mrs. Collins' full mental competence, along with bank statements proving she's financially independent. The only instability here," he said, glancing at Kendra, "is in their motives." The judge nodded slowly. "I've heard enough." She removed her glasses and looked directly at Ethan. "Mr. Collins, I want you to understand the seriousness of what's happened here. You've attempted to strip your mother of her autonomy under false pretenses. Do you have anything to say before I issue my ruling?" Ethan looked up, eyes wet, voice shaking. "Your Honor, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just thought." "You thought wrong," the judge interrupted. "Family disputes are one thing, but filing a fraudulent petition to control a parent's assets is a severe abuse of the legal system." She turned her gaze toward me. "Mrs. Collins, you have shown remarkable composure throughout this ordeal. The court finds you fully competent to manage your affairs. The petition is dismissed, effective immediately." A rush of air left my lungs. The room blurred as tears filled my eyes, not of pain this time but of freedom. The judge wasn't done. "Furthermore," she continued, "this court is forwarding a copy of this hearing's transcript to the district attorney's office for review. False claims of incapacity and potential elder exploitation are serious matters. I suggest the petitioners seek counsel of their own." Kendra gasped. "What does that mean?" Mr. Thompson muttered under his breath. "It means you might be investigated, Kendra." As the gavel came down one final time, the courtroom erupted in whispers. I sat there quietly, trembling with relief. Mr. Weber smiled. "You won, Mrs. Collins." "No," I said softly. "I survived." Ethan and Kendra gathered their things in silence. As they passed by me, Ethan stopped. His lips quivered. "Mom, I didn't mean to hurt you," he said, his voice barely a whisper. I looked at him, my son a stranger now. "I know," I said gently. "You just never meant to love me either." He looked away, tears rolling down his cheeks. Kendra grabbed his arm and pulled him out of the room. When they were gone, I let out the breath I'd been holding for months. Mr. Weber placed a hand on my shoulder. "You did good, Margaret. You stood up for yourself, and that's no small thing." Outside the courthouse, the autumn air hit my face like a blessing. I closed my eyes, feeling the warmth of the sun. The world looked different, brighter, calmer. For years, I'd given everything to people who only saw me as a resource. But now I finally understood self-respect isn't selfishness. It's survival. I took one deep breath, stepped down the courthouse stairs, and whispered to myself, "You're free now." But freedom came with a price, because walking away from family isn't the end. It's the beginning of healing. For the first time in years, I woke up without anxiety clawing at my chest. No missed calls. No guilt. No one waiting for me to fix their life. Just silence, the kind that felt like freedom, not loneliness. I sat by the window with my morning coffee, watching the autumn leaves drift down from the old maple tree in my yard. The same tree Ethan used to climb as a boy. For a long time, I used to see that tree as a reminder of everything I'd lost. But that morning I realized something. It was still standing. Bent, weathered, but standing strong. Just like me. The court victory hadn't magically erased the pain. The betrayal still lingered, sharp and cold. But it no longer defined me. I'd finally drawn a line. Not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Mr. Weber called later that week. The DA's office reviewed the case, he said. They're investigating Ethan and Kendra for filing false claims and attempted financial exploitation. You don't have to do anything. Just let the system handle it. I thanked him quietly. Part of me felt sad that it had come to this. But another part, the stronger part, knew it was justice. That night, I pulled out a box of old photographs, Ethan's baby pictures, his first day of school, family Christmases with my late husband. I couldn't bring myself to throw them away, but I also knew I couldn't keep living in those memories. So I made a choice. The next morning I packed a small suitcase, grabbed my car keys, and drove out of town. No destination, just the open road. Hours later, I stopped by a small coastal town I'd visited with my husband decades ago. The same little diner still stood by the shore. Faded sign, cracked windows, same smell of coffee and pancakes. When I walked in, the waitress, a young woman barely in her 20s, smiled brightly. "Morning, ma'am. Coffee?" "Yes, please," I said, smiling back. "Black. Strong." I sat by the window watching waves crash against the rocks. For the first time I didn't feel old. I felt alive. A man at the next table struck up a conversation. His name was Henry, retired teacher, widowed, kind eyes. We talked about books, travel, the absurd cost of gas, and somehow ended up laughing like old friends. When I told him I was just passing through, he said something that stuck with me. Sometimes you don't need to find home. You just need to stop where peace finds you. That night, I booked a small cottage by the beach for a month. Just me, the ocean, and time to unlearn the habit of giving until there's nothing left. Every morning I walked along the shoreline barefoot, letting the waves wash away everything I'd carried too long: guilt, resentment, the ache of being unwanted. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I whispered into the sea, "I forgive you, Ethan. But I forgive you for me, not for you." Because forgiveness, I learned, isn't about making them feel better. It's about freeing yourself from the weight they left behind. Weeks passed. My laughter came back, soft at first, then louder. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since my husband died. The little cottage slowly filled with color, canvas after canvas of sunsets, waves, and that old maple tree from home. One morning I received a letter in the mail. It was from Ethan. "Mom, I don't expect forgiveness," it said. "You were right. I let greed blind me. Kendra's gone. I'm getting help. I'm sorry." I read it twice, folded it carefully, and placed it in a drawer. I didn't call him. Not yet. But I didn't throw it away either. Maybe someday. For now, peace was enough. I sat on the porch that evening, warm cup of tea in hand, the sound of waves in the distance. The sunset painted the sky gold and crimson, like the world was saying, "You made it." And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like someone's mother, or someone's caretaker, or someone's backup plan. I just felt like me. Margaret Collins, a woman who finally remembered her worth. Sometimes, walking away doesn't mean losing family. It means finding yourself again. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to share it. Someone out there might need to hear it today.